There is a secret to tapping into your personal power and cultivating the power you need to achieve your goals, heal your past wounds, and create the life of your choice. And I show you what that secret is in this video. Did I give you guys that page? It's an extra page for the workbook that I created. I don't know if I included it in the copy of the workbook that you guys have. It's about changing your, I guess it's changing your self-image. Do you have that one?
I'm not sure.
I'll see if I can find it on my computer here. Let me see. You might not have seen it. Oh, here comes Greg now. Hey, Greg. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay.
In your workbook, okay.
Yeah, so I can make this a little bigger, I think. So here's this is kind of a formula, right? But it's a way of changing your self-image. It's also a great way to do some affirmations. So it says here, in your workbook, write an affirmation, meditate on it for a few minutes, search for ways that it's true for you, record the ideas in your workbook, work with one affirmation for a week, and chart your progress, right? So here's the affirmation. Greg, I was talking to you about this last week, if you remember. I'm one of those people who, right?
Uh-huh.
So here's kind of a little formula here. I am one of those people who can attract. Then you can say more opportunities, or attract loving relationships, or who can attract better partnerships, more good luck, more money, more and better clients, right?
Yep.
So the idea is to take one of those affirmations and write it down. You know, find one that you don't believe, or that you'd like to believe more, for example. And so you write the affirmation down, you think about it, and of course you work in your workbook and you think of examples of why it's true. That's the idea. You know, you're looking for places where it's true. And once you have 3-4 examples, then automatically, you know, over time, it might take a few days, it might take a week or two, depending on the situation that you're working on. It might take, 2 or 3 weeks. So what I suggest is that you pick one for a week and then work on it for a week, 10, 15 minutes thinking about it, and try and get the truth, this is true for me. I'm one of those people who can improve my relationships or attract better clients, whatever it might be for you, right? So that's one of the
Can you make it smaller to fit the screen so I can screenshot it?
Yeah, I can send it to you. I can
Send
send it to you too. Let me see now. How can I? Here we go. I'll make it so that it fits the whole screen, I think. But I can send it to you too.
All right.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
So one of them is, I'm one of those people who can attract whatever it is you want to attract, right? More opportunities, loving relationships, better partnerships, more good luck, more money, more and better clients, something like that. Another one is, I'm one of those people who can change how I think of my past, or change how I think of my future, change how I think of other people, change how I think of my personal power or my talents and abilities, what I deserve. I'm one of those people, or you can just say I am a person who can change how I think of what I deserve, let's say, right? That's the idea. And then another one is I'm one of those people who can heal my past emotional wounds, my relationships, heal my body, heal my attitudes, heal my life. And then the last one is I'm one of those people who can increase my income, my self-esteem, my personal power, my confidence, my level of motivation, my level of gratitude. Right?
Yes.
Now, the way that I came upon this, I mentioned one time that I met this guy who had a language school in Vancouver, and he spoke 33 languages, and he taught all those languages to people. And do you remember me telling you this story?
Yes, about there's a way to learn language, right? He went into specifics.
Yeah. So when I first met him, like, I was interested in language. I'm still interested in languages for a whole bunch of different reasons. And I speak 3 or 4 of them, to some degree. And I'm interested in linguistics. I studied it in university. So when I met this guy and he spoke 33 languages, it blew my mind. I said, wait a second, how can you possibly speak 33 languages? How can you learn those languages? And he says, well, I have a system, right? So I said, well, what's the system? I'm interested. So he said, well, here, I can show you. It'll take you, it'll take me 10 minutes, right? So I said, okay. So he wrote down on a piece of paper, I can. For example, I can speak. So he said, okay, so can is a helping verb. That's what he called it. So he said, for example, here you go, you have I, and then you have this can, and you have speak, right? So if you have 10 of these helping verbs, like, for example, I want to speak. I need to speak. I should speak. I must speak. He said, let's say you had 10 of those. Can, will, must, should, whatever. And then you have 10 verbs like speak, locate, buy, find. Let's say you had 10 of those. Now, how many sentences could you make? You have 10 helping verbs and you have 10 verbs. And how many sentences could you make? So I said, well, 10 times 10, you can make 100, right? So he said, that's right. So you learn 20 words and you can make 100 sentences, or at least you can express 100 ideas. They're not necessarily sentences, but he said, now look at this. He said, what if you have 10 adverbs, like words like now, today, tomorrow, next week, last week, soon, immediately, right? So you have 10 of those words, like time words, and you have helping words or helping verbs, and you have verbs. You have 10 helping verbs, 10 verbs, 10 adverbs of time. How many sentences can you say? So I said, well, 10 times 10 times 10 is 1,000. He said, that's right. You learn 30 words and you can say 1,000 different things. So that blew my mind. I thought, that's exactly right. Now, I think this is probably the way that children learn, you know. Like, I mean, little kids, you know, I want milk, I want cookie, I want hug, I want daddy, you know, I want sleep, right? So immediately I thought, this guy is exactly right. He's onto something. Well, a few years later, when I was in Germany, I found myself in Germany more or less by accident. You know, I was traveling, hitchhiking around, and I had intended to go to Greece because I'd never been there, and I thought it would be exotic to go to Greece. And winter time was coming up. I think it was October or something when I was there, and I thought, you know, I'm going to spend the winter in Greece. That was my fantasy, right? Well, I ended up sitting in the Hofbräuhaus in Munich, drinking beer with these Americans. I met a bunch of Americans there. And one of them, you know, he became a friend of mine. And he said to me, are you planning to stay here? So I said, well, no, I'm on the way to Greece. He said, what are you going to Greece for? Greece is stupid. You know? He said, you should stay here. Munich is a fantastic city. I've been here for years. I love it. You know, I said, well, I got no money. I needed to get a job. And he said, I'll give you a job. He said, the place I'm working, I'm sure I can get you a job there. So I said, okay, well, look, I have a ride to Greece tomorrow at noon with some people I met in the hostel who have this Volkswagen van. And I'm going to leave for Greece tomorrow at noon. If you can find me a job before noon, I'll stay. Otherwise, I'm going to Greece. So he said, okay, meet me at 9 o'clock. So I met him at 9 o'clock in the morning, and he introduced me to his boss. The boss gave me a job. So I thought, oh, gee, okay, well, I guess I'm going to stay here now. So I ended up with this job, and then I found a place to live. Found a little room in a house to rent. And so I thought, geez, here I am now working in Germany, living in Germany. I didn't plan this. I guess I should learn to speak German. So I took this guy, you know, I took this guy's idea. I took out a sheet of paper and I said, you know, I need to buy, I need to find, I need to go. I need to find hospital. I need to go store. I need to find bus, right? Immediately. I need to go hospital soon. And so what I found was that he was exactly right. Everybody understood exactly what I was saying, right? And of course, you can recognize, I'm sure, that that's true, right? I mean, this is the way children talk. Want cookie now, need sleep now, you know. And so I started with those list of, you know, 10 helping verbs, 10 verbs. I figured out what I need. You know, I need to find restaurant. I want find bathroom now, please, right? And literally within a couple of weeks, I was talking to people and having conversations with people, and it was miraculous. And of course, as you know, you can imagine, as soon as you start engaging in a conversation like that, pretty soon you learn other words, and you know, you flesh out the sentence so you sound much more natural, you know. And I remember I got a job. I got a different job after after this job that my friend found for me. And I ended up becoming a partner in this company, actually, started by a friend of mine. But nevertheless, I had this job where I was sort of a foreman in this construction company. They were subcontracting workers to these various building sites in Germany. This was in 1972. And so I had a Volkswagen van. I used to drive these carpenters. We had about 50 carpenters working for us. And I would take, you know, one crew to this place, another crew to that place, another crew to this place. And I was working in these 3 or 4 different cities, traveling around Germany, right? And so I remember one day I was sitting in this hotel, I think it was, and I was talking to this person, and I was carrying on a conversation. This was about a year or so, less than a year, I think, after I arrived. So I might have been there 10 months, something like that. And my German was, more or less flawless, right? I mean, I made lots of mistakes, of course, but I could certainly get along well in German. And I had this conversation with this couple who ran this hotel, sort of a small pension kind of a thing. And so we're talking away there, and the woman says to me, "Excuse me, what part of Germany are you from?" So I said, "Oh, I'm not from Germany. I'm from Canada." She says, "Oh, but you were born in Germany, right?" I said, No, I was born in England." "Oh, but your parents are German, right? You were raised speaking German?" I said, "No." They said, "How long you been in Germany?" I said, a year and a half, something like that. They were astounded, They said, "Your German is perfect." But I just couldn't place your accent. So, it was amazing starting from that little thing. So the way I looked at it is that your knowledge in any area grows, right? You start off learning a few concepts. I mean, this is true if you're learning music or you're learning architecture or you're learning, whatever you're learning, any, language, that you're going to learn like these branches, I can, I must, I can now, I can later, I want to in a short while go on a holiday, these little branches of can, must, should, need, they just keep growing as you learn more vocabulary, right? And so that's where the idea came from, that idea that, I'm one of those people who can do this, who should do that, who is able to change my feelings, change my emotions. So I think it's a real organic way of learning something. And I thought for a while, like I say, this guy, the last time I talked to him years later. I bumped into him somewhere. And I said, "How many languages do you speak now?" And he said, 73. I mean, unbelievable, right? I mean,
Wow.
I've seen this guy at a party. Like, he used to have this language school. It was called the Geneva Language Institute in Vancouver. And he would have students there, and he would go from student to student, and he'd speak Portuguese to this person, then French to that person, then Russian, then Italian, and then Chinese. It was unbelievable. So he was a real inspiration. But that idea is simple, right? I mean, you can right away you can see how useful it is. And I've used it many times since then. When I ended up in China in 2005, and again, that was another kind of a fluke. I didn't intend to go to China necessarily. I was offered a job there. I couldn't find anything better, so I went. And immediately that I got there, I realized, wow, what an idiot I was not to realize what a fantastic opportunity this is, So I thought, well, I better learn some Chinese then. So I did the exact same things. I need to go here. I want to do this. I must find this. And pretty quickly, I learned enough Chinese that if I had to go someplace or do something, I could easily do it. I went shopping all the time. I could go up to somebody and say, "Excuse me, I need find bus number 12. Where, please?" Yeah, they'd say, "Oh, it's over there." I need get taxi. I want go downtown. How much? Everybody understood. Nobody ever said, "Oh, you're missing pronouns. You're missing adjectives. You're missing adverbs." No, they never said. Nobody ever said that. All they ever said to me was, wow, your Chinese is pretty good, you know, or your German is pretty good. So so I applied that same principle to this affirmation idea, you know. And the reason that I start off with that affirmation, I mentioned this to Greg last week, but you guys weren't there. Carl Jung has this concept of what he calls archetypes, right? For example, Jungian experts, they often talk about things like, you know, the king, the warrior, the magician, the lover, or maybe the victim. You know, certain people identify with being a victim. Other people identify with being a king or a lover or a business person. You know, you have these ideas already in your mind. You know, certain people are business people. Certain people are musicians. Certain people are talented. You know, we all have these archetypes in our mind. So if you say to yourself, okay, I'm one of those people who can develop talent, who can, you know, learn music, your mind, in my experience, your mind sort of goes, oh, okay, yeah, I know what those people are like. And if you include yourself in one of those groups, then you quickly become that group. I mean, that's the essence of the idea in my quit smoking program. I'm one of those people who's able to quit smoking, right? So some of the things that I've learned in my life are things like, or some of the ideas I've developed, some of the beliefs. I'm a person who can learn new things successfully, right? I can learn tricky things that other people can't learn. So it's a great way to expand your self-image, expand your confidence, expand your world, really. Join us in this online community for $1 a day. You get your own PDF copy of the book upon which this entire training series is based. 2 powerful meditation recordings, this Design Your Life workbook, and a 4-hour video course that tells you how to use it to change your life step by step. Go to learntodesignyourlife.com.